Some people can't take that. Some people have a very hard time digesting that jagged little pill. I mean, I've obviously struggled with it. It's part of the reasons why, you know, I've allowed my wounds to become my work and why I upload videos to the channel still to this day. This video is really about surrendering and accepting the reality of the world that we live in and not, you know, keeping your head up in the clouds. You know, one of the realities that I must accept myself right now, I come out in the morning early to get some vitamin D, and if I sat out here all day, I'd be burned to a crisp. I just don't tan very well. You know, you can see I'm a nice shade of red. You know, it turns brown over time. But for me, the reality of this relationship I have with getting my morning dose of vitamin D needs to have a time limit on it. Like, I have to accept that it's not an all-day thing. And one of the things that guys struggle with is accepting the reality of female nature and, you know, who and what they are. And this isn't a bad thing. So when you understand women for what they are, then you can proceed in logical, concise steps, you know, make proper choices so you don't get burned. There's a large demographic out there of men that are frustrated, annoyed, they don't get very good results, they largely get ignored by women, some are involuntary celibate, and then they get mad at these realities. But the truth of the matter is this is consistent for all guys throughout history, and it's a good thing for sapiens as a race. If we weren't, well, specifically, if women weren't self-interested, meaning solipsistic and hypergamous, all they've really ever cared about throughout history is themselves and their children. And there's a reason for that. They're a lot weaker than men. You know, they don't, I mean, they've got a third of the upper body strength that most men do. You know, they're not designed for physical, like, you know, hunting and gathering like we've been doing for millions of years before we created, you know, roads and homes and electricity and cameras and stuff like that. This is only very, very new. So we wouldn't have been this successful as a species had women not been hypergamous and solipsistic. And all that really means is women always want to know that they can get the best deal they possibly can, and there has to be something in the relationship for her. That's what his mindset is 95% of women, when truthfully it's all women. All women will keep you around so long as you're useful. And that's a grim, that's a cold hard truth bomb. Some people can't take that. Some people have a very hard time digesting that jagged little pill. But when you accept it, when you surrender to it, and you understand that women don't love you in the way that you want them to love you. We as men want women to love us in the way that we've thought that women should love us, based on how we've been brought up on a strong dose of you know, feminism and Disney movies. And, you know, even as a kid growing up watching TV shows like Home Improvement, for example, you know, the father, the husband, was always a bumbling idiot, and you know, would always do something wrong in every episode, and, you know, the woman was always frustrated with him, sort of thing. We've been fed a steady diet of men are these useful idiots, essentially, and we've become comfortable with that baseline notion of what we're good for, and that's fine. You know, that's the place that we fill in society today. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. In fact, it's going to get worse for guys. The sexual marketplace is going to become more hostile towards men in general as time progresses. That's really what this toxic version of feminism is creating for this sexual marketplace. So you just have to accept it. So with that being said, when you surrender to the reality of the world, you can now live in it. You can now understand that it is what it is. The most popular sport in the world is football, also known as soccer in North America. But, you know, if we put it in perspective, when somebody buys a ticket for a football match and they go to the stadium, they know what they're in for. You know, they're going to see a game. There's two teams that are going to play. There's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of rowdiness, a lot of boos, a lot of screaming and shouting. And they understand what they're getting into, and they're happy with the results. But the problem is most men don't understand what they're getting into with women. Most guys still hold an idealistic view of women that doesn't exist. When you understand that women can't love you in the way that you want them to love you, and that they can only love you for the use that you bring to the relationship, then everything can be okay. Now, he's smart, you know, he's chasing excellence. He's obviously, you know, putting his purpose ahead of all this other stuff. But the struggle that he has with is, women only are with me because of what I can, you know, bring to their lives, the value that I can apply to make things better for them. So accepting it and surrendering it is obviously the very first step. The next step is, once you've surrendered to the reality of it, you now put in place boundaries that are going to protect you and your wealth, more specifically your wealth, and any kind of legal issues from anything that women or family law can come your way. And what that really means is, in today's world, and I'm talking specifically to seasoned older gentlemen, so 40 plus, you should have had your kids out of the way by now. This guy, you know, he's wrapped up, his divorce is done, he's paid a settlement, he has no further liabilities there, his kids are almost adults, you know, he's just paying for college and university now. But as men, like when you get to that point, you need to make sure that you don't live in a way that will be viewed as marriage by the state. And all that means is, if you live in a common law place where if you live together for a certain period of time and it's viewed as a marriage, then there's going to be a division of assets. If I live with somebody here without a cohabitation agreement in Canada, and things, you know, the knot unties 5 years later and she wants to take half my shit, there's a bit of a legal battle that has to take place there, and I'm probably not going to fare very well at the end of it. So knowing that as a man in that environment, I should never live with a woman in a way that the state would deem as a marriage, where it would apply family law without a rock solid cohabitation agreement. I would rely on my lawyer for his best advice on that, and his best advice might be just don't. You know, the risk is not worth it. I can't make this bulletproof. So I'd have to have that conversation. That's what all men need to do. They also need to get their heads around domestic violence laws where they live, because there's some crazy women out there. You know, they say something like, 1 in 5 women are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and that's quite dangerous to be around. If they falsely allege any kind of domestic violence, you know, that can put you in jail and again separate you from your wealth. There can be problems that are involved with that. So knowing those key things where you live, there's a lot of rich guys out there that are seasoned, that have made money, that have access to wealth, and there's no reason why you shouldn't pay a lawyer, you know, for an hour or 2 hours of their time to understand what family law looks like in your area when it comes to women, and then just playing the game in accordance with those laws. And if that means never living with a woman, or if you can live with a woman and have a cohabitation agreement to protect your assets, then do that. Then that's what you do. You know, you just have to understand the rules of the game and then apply smart, intelligent steps to your life and the choices you make in that relationship. And as unromantic and as silly as that sounds, and you know, there's always somebody that like chimes in, oh, it sounds like too much work, just pay a prostitute or just get a doll. Okay, well, that's the solution that some men take, but there's a good chunk of the population that is not interested in that solution, or they're not prepared to take that solution, or they feel they don't need to take that solution. And I fall in the latter. I mean, I basically plot the minefield for guys. I lay out the map and I say, here's all the mines, now go do what you want. You want to walk through the minefield, do it. You know, these are the areas that you can walk within, and this is how you do it without ruining your life or losing your wealth to family law or a crazy woman later on down the road. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment below. Let me know what your approach is to the sexual marketplace. I'm curious, you know, like, are you familiar with what the landmine points are on the map, and do you navigate around them? You know, do you just avoid it completely? Is the juice not worth the squeeze? What solutions have you found that have been useful to apply in your life, given what he's asking here? Because I think it's something a lot of guys struggle with. I mean, I've obviously struggled with it. It's part of the reasons why, you know, I've allowed my wounds to become my work, and why I upload videos to the channel still to this day. You know, here I am almost 6 years later, roughly. But it is what it is. It's something that men need to surrender to. You just need to understand female nature. Just understand that she can never love you for love as you've been told, you know, as we've been sold our entire lives, till death do us part, and sickness and health, and blah, 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 and all that stuff. Humans aren't particularly good at monogamy. We often, or very, very rarely, spend our entire lives with the same person. So it's just the reality of the world that we live in. And when you can accept that, and you make yourself your own mental point of origin, I think things get much, much better for guys. So anyway, with that being said, I'll leave it at that. Check out the pinned links in the top description from sponsors. You want to book me, if you want to join my men's community, it's all there. This gentleman's in my men's community. So I'll leave it at that. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.